Okay, from DRO Pros, EL700 3-axis, 1 micron scales in all my parts. And what's funny is, me and Todd are putting it in together. Awesome. Okay, well, we've got a new project. I'm finished with the taper attachment on the lathe. Now it's time to get a DRO set up on it. And setting up a taper attachment is super easy if you've got a DRO installed. So this is what my order of operation was, is to get the taper attachment done so I know all my obstacles so I can get this installed. This is from DRO Pros. It's a 700 series 3-axis DRO with the LCD screen. And you know, it comes with an amazing amount of bracketry. And I'm not going to go into the generic details on this, because DRO Pros has excellent videos already up, you know, and I'm going to go into machine specific things that I encounter. We've got a Logan that we're putting this on, and you're probably going to ask, why'd you get a 3-axis? What's the third axis? We've got the bed, which is your Z-axis. You got the cross slide, which is your X-axis. But then we've also got another scale here, and it's kind of a small one, and we're going to be cutting it down too. We're going to be attempting to install this on the compound. Now, their 700 series does have a feature. If you swing your swing your compound over at a specific angle, you can plug that angle into the DRO and it will compensate on your X-axis. So I thought that was pretty cool. The compound on that lathe is pretty small. That scale's only going to end up being, maybe 5 inches, you know, a little short thing. But we're going to go over some of the bracketry. A lot of this stuff you're not even going to use. This is one of your bread and butters. What this is they call it a flush mount, and that's going to put, if you've got a scale and your reed head are on the same plane, this puts your reed head just in the perfect position. All right, and this can be milled down, you know, if you're a little too, you know, if it's stepped off, you can mill it down here, or if it's got a little too much height, you can mill it down here. A lot of these holes are very deep and probably not all the way threaded, but it's pretty easy to get in there and retap them. And I should mention too that they have jacking bolts. There's each one has 4 little threaded holes in it. And what that does is that enables you to loosen your 2 main mounting bolts and kind of jack this around, tip it, and do some fine adjustments on your final reed head alignments and things like that. So there's some tramming involved. There's some of these. These are kind of a mounting block. I'm not sure. I don't think we're going to be using a heck of a lot of those. I think we're only going to be using one of them. These are for they'll end mount a scale out on the end, as so. But also, if you're using a long scale like we are on the Z, in the center, it gives you a place to pin it down and clamp it in the center as well. So I'm thinking we're only going to be using one of those of these little standoff blocks or whatever. But it's a nice kit. As far as the Z-axis goes, this is what goes to the back of the carriage. It's got a drop set up here, which has got some nice adjustment. And then this fellow, they call this a T-bracket. This goes in like this, and your reed head mounts right there. So you can do some milling and cutting and playing with that, and you can get that working really good. So as far as bracketry goes, pretty universal. You're probably not going to use everything that they get set up, but we'll go over to the lathe. I'm going to show you everything that's machine specific. For general information, my advice is to go to the DRO Pros website. Todd has some great videos up on the installation of all this stuff. All right, well, first let's take a look at the x-axis. We're at the tailstock side of the machine looking in towards the headstock. And, you know, we've got gib adjustment here on all these little set screws. And I keep a knob on one of them right here. And that allows me to, you know, kind of lock my carriage a little bit and rigid up the setup. And also, if you look down here, there's two holes there, and those are for a following rest. So, and a lot of times, if I'm working down at this end and my tailstock is down here, I use every bit of this. I will run this down all the way tight to the head to the tailstock, and you know, within an eighth of an inch or a quarter inch, just to make my cuts, and so I don't have to extend my tailstock quill hanging way out in space. You know, so this side, although I would prefer it being away from the chuck and the working area of the lathe, is really not feasible, simply for the reason of follow rest and gib adjustments and the ability to lock my cross slide. So let's go over to the headstock side of the cross slide and take a look at that and look at the feasibility of that. Okay, well, we're over at the headstock side of our cross slide, and you can see we've got a very clean surface here, and actually both of these surfaces are pretty darn close. They're a little off. This is a piece of cast iron, but it has been machined. This is precision machined here, but our distance isn't too far off, and that'll be pretty easy to work with. And our scale, I brought a scale with me. Our scale is actually too long, and it can mount right along here. And our reed head is going to go down at this end, and then we're going to put a cover over the whole thing. Now, I'm not crazy about the idea of putting it up against on the working side of the chuck. You know, there may come a time where I'll have to remove this just to do some work, you know, but when we get in close here, you know, we've got a spinning chuck right here. And even now you can see how close we're getting there. But they do give us covers that go over these that protect the whole setup. The reed head, actually, let me go get a reed head. Is that going to stay there? I'll just lay that right here for now. Let me go grab a reed head, and we'll hold it up there, and you'll see what kind of clearance issues we may have. Okay, I got a reed head in my hand, and you know, these things are pretty compact. They're really not that big. But let's put our scale kind of back out here, and our reed head is going to be sitting down like that. So that's your profile there. And like I say, there's going to be a cover over the whole thing. And I'm going to take this scale, and I'm not going to put it flush with the top of the carriage. I'm going to drop it down a little bit. I have plenty of room, so it can drop down. But I am going to drop it down just a little bit, and I'm going to show you why. Let me go grab a cover. They actually give you covers for these, so let me go grab a cover. Okay, they give you an extruded aluminum cover, which, you know, you can modify it any way you want. But as your scale is here, these mount right to the top of the scale. And I don't want anything sticking up beyond this, mainly because my compound, when it swings over here. So this whole thing's going to be below the surface, hardware and everything included. So this is going to get cut down. The instructions say do this, and then you've got this lip sticking up. So no thanks, I'm not doing that. So yeah, this will get modified. Not a big deal. It's just extruded aluminum. It cuts beautifully. With a miter saw with a carbide blade, you know, it cuts right through it. So pretty easy to work with. All right. There are a few notable things in DRO Pro's Todd's videos that are noteworthy. if you're going to use the magnetic scales, you're going to see some hash marks here. And also on your reed head, you're going to see some hash marks there. You do not want to install like this. The hash marks have to be on the same side. Even if you install the scale upside down, so the lettering is upside down, doesn't matter. Make sure that those hash marks line up. And if you're going to cut your scales, you have to slip out this little stainless steel strip, mark your scale head or your scale extrusion, so that when you slip that out, you can get it back in the same way, and you know which one is which. The end caps slip right off. Okay, so your end cap comes off, and here's the screws that go in. And I don't know what the Euro meter on it is, but those are, they go into that extrusion quite a long ways. And these holes are continuous. There's 2 holes in the end, and when you finish making your cut, you are going to have to retap, but you don't have to drill. But those holes are through the length of the extrusion. After you've done this, make sure you've marked here. Your little magnet or your stainless steel strip just comes right out. All right. And then this just gets cut in a chop saw. You can use a carbide tipped blade and just blaze right through it. It just goes right through. Then the strip gets cut with a pair of scissors or 10 snips, and the whole mess gets put back together. All right, that's how you cut a scale. I'm not going to show doing the chop saw thing, but it is noteworthy that you need to realign your hash marks. Okay, I'm back from the chop saw, and I thought I'd show you the cross section, or the raw cross section, and that's my cut. That's with a carbide tipped kind of a finishing blade on a miter saw. It goes right through the aluminum extrusion like it's not even there. The only thing it has to do is get through a very thin magnetic strip. And you can see the strip is offset, so I'm thinking that is why orienting the reed head is so important. All right, but just thought I'd show you that cut. We need to tap those 2 holes, but we don't need to drill them. Okay, so here's the top of the cross slide. I went ahead and took it out. It comes out easy enough. And we've got a range of motion on our drilled and tapped holes out here. And even all the way up, we've got just enough to get our cover on. And I'm going to want it to live just below the surface of the cross slide. So, you know, it can't build up oil, chips, coolant, whatever, a place for it to run off. So we've got that done. Our scales fit. We've got just a tiny, maybe 1/8 of an inch down here to the very extreme ends of it. So anything that happens down here, it'll bump here before it actually hits the scale. So that's our install on this one. We need to go calculate our reed head size or to mill the bracket, because we don't have a common plane. We're on an unequal plane, so we're going to have to mill down that little bracket. So let's go throw this back on the machine, and we'll take a look at that. Okay, so we're ready to calculate removal of some material on our bracket. Now, this is what they call a flush mount bracket. When they say that, they mean when the magnetic scale and this bracket are on the same plane and you drop the reed head on, you're ready to go. But what if you're not on the same plane? If you look here, you'll see we're not. And what we did is we got in there with a depth indicator and calculated the distance. Now what I came up with was 80 thousandths. There's a 80 thousandths difference. So essentially we need to plow 80 thousandths off this bottom, and in order for these to end up at the right elevation. Now remember too, we've got our jacking bolts. You know, if all we got to do is get it close, and those little grub screws in there can jack this around and do the rest. So we're going to go ahead and take 80 thousandths off of this, And then next up, we're gonna calculate the height. I have a feeling my bracketry is going to be too high as well. So this is the first step. Let's plow 80 thou out of there, and we'll go from there. Okay, well, we're back from the mill, and we've taken off our 80 thousandths off of this pad here. Now it's time to calculate the dog leg, or the height of the thing. And we've got our scale on. It's at the midpoint of the adjustment, so I could go up or down with it, either one. We're just going to hold our reed head on here down against that. It's a casting, so and it's actually got some draft to it. It's kind of tipped. So my reed heads are going to want to tip in. We're going to have to use jacking bolts to level that out. But I don't know whether you can see it or not, but down there, the bracket is too long. It's hanging below the carriage. And I've already done it. I came in from the bottom. I held one with the reed head with one hand, and I went under the lathe with this screw a little loose. And I was able to take this Starrett kind of a little T-square, adjustable T-square. That ruler slides in and out, and that just enables me to come in here and actually get a number. So it looks like just under ½ inch. Yep, 479 is is the read I'm getting on that. And that is directly proportional to how much we need to take off the top of this bracket. So we'll put it back on the mill, plow this down off of the top, 479 thousandths. Let's call it a nice even 480, and cut that off of there. Remember, we've got nice adjustment here, slots here, and we've got nice adjustment slots on the scale itself. So let's get that one milled down, and then we're going to be ready to figure out the placement of it, and work on getting our 2 holes in the carriage. I was just touching off here, and I just realized what came first, the chicken or the egg. Okay. Okay, so back from the mill, and we've cut down our dog leg here, and we're ready to kind of do a fit. I've got my cross slide to its stop all the way closest to me, so at that point we want to mount this reed head as far to the back of the scale as we can. So we're going to be choosing this position for it, and you want to clear the wiper, make sure the wipers are installed on your little reed head. And we're just checking here, and you can see now my bracket doesn't hang below the bottom anymore, so that's good. And but here you can see the rock in our casting. I'm gonna kind of tip it here. I don't know whether you can see that or not, but the casting down below is not perfect. It's a big, rough, bumpy surface, and we're gonna definitely be using those jacking screws to get that to lay flat. And now we're going to run all the way to the other side. Now this lathe has no hard stop going in this direction, but I can assure you I'm going to create one. So after this reed head is installed, we're going to be putting in a hard stop on there, and that's just going to kind of serve as a reminder. You know, if I ever need to take this thing apart, boom, I hit a hard stop and go, oh wow, oh, I got to take the reed head off and get the reed head out of the way, then I can remove. So it's quite a bit of travel. It's way more than I need, I don't think I've ever had the compound back that far. The center line of the compound is pretty much even with the spindle center line at this point. So pretty easily calculated. Now we can transfer punch our 2 holes. The guys over at DRO Pros recommend putting on a little bit of double sticky tape right here, the gray foamy stuff, and sticking it on temporarily, which is actually a really good idea. And then you can run your transfer punches in there and you get your holes spotted. All right, so that's coming up next. We need to get the holes punched down here and the carriage drilled and tapped. So that's the next hurdle. Okay, I am ever so lightly clamped in with a Bessie clamp. I got a folded up paper towel in between the reed head and the mag scale. And I mean to tell you, don't over tighten this. I don't want to break anything. But I just got a real light clamp on there just to hold it in place long enough for me to pop a couple holes. The double stick tape trick is good. But I think this is going to hold us long enough just to transfer a couple of marks in there. And that should be it. Yep, I got a couple nice spots in there. Easy enough to follow up with a small little punch and be able to get a hole drilled. All right, so that's how I did it, but I fond of the double stick tape trick. Sounds good to me. All right, let me get them drilled and tapped. All right, so we got our holes drilled and tapped out here. A ratcheting type tap handle is a wonderful thing. And now it's time to prep our reed head bracket. And you notice I've already got 3 of the 4 grub screws installed. This one here just needs to drop in and just run it for now. Just run them out until they're just even with the end. And this is what's going to take up any irregularities in the casting. They call them grub screws, but technically they're jacking bolts on a miniature scale. So just have them all sit down below the surface. And they do provide you with some hex cap screws with some nice heavy washers. And those are just going to thread right in. So let's just do it. There's a couple more things we're going to do. To finagle this thing around, but for the most part, we're on the home stretch here on this axis at least. And now's the time. We're going to be bolting down to that ugly raw casting there. And you can see the spring back from the wipers, the wiper right there. And we're going to use what they call a shim. And it just slips in between the reed head and the magnet to create an intentional gap, the proper gap. So to be able to observe that, I think I'm just going to pop those 2 little screws off, pull that 1 wiper off on this side so I can actually see it in there. And then we can start messing with those jacking screws and, get rid of that out of parallelism type of thing. It's entirely possible that we'll have to take this bracket back to the mill and shave a little more off of it. But I have been very successful at removing material, and I have had no luck whatsoever at putting it back. Okay, well, I did, in fact, have to go back to the mill, and I plowed another 10,000th out of this plane, and it's going to be all jacking screws from there. And we're probably coming up on the home stretch on putting this on. And now's as good a time as any is to check the taper on this. You get it dialed in. Looks like I got a winner. I actually set it down on shim stock at both ends, so I can't get too cocky with it. It's off about a half thou, coming up on a thou over the whole travel. All right, well, I mean, I can fix that pretty darn easy. And this needs to go down. to 0. And we didn't move down here. We're pivoting off of that, so we should be good. Yep, we're tramming good. And now we're working on the jacking bolts and the mounting hardware. And I was going to kind of show you, I've got one of the wipers off on this side, and I'm able to go in here and I can feel over here on this side. And I'm just going to take my jacking bolt and pinch it in just till I got the right feel there. And then I'm going to tighten here and make sure I've still got the right feel. You can see my little feeler gauge popping out of the other side. And it's very stiff and difficult to pull, but not impossible. And then we can tighten our other bolt down, and you should feel it tighten up a little bit. So yeah, we're good there. Now we're going to come out to this end and move all of our stuff over to here and start bringing this down. And I'm just starting to feel a little bit of drag. But let me back those. I'm going to back these jacking bolts off just a little bit on this side. I'm trying to keep my hands out of the way. I'm going to pull these jacking bolts back just a skosh. And then I'm going to bring this side down. And that's going to bring those jacking bolts back into contact. And now I'm starting to feel a little more drag, but I'm still not tight here. You're working two sides against the middle. And there, oh, there it is. And our bolt is, I'm fine with that bolt. So yeah, now we're nice and snug again. And now we can put our wiper back on. You know, we've, our reed head's in. We've got the correct distance. We've trammed it. I would say X-axis is complete. The only thing left to do is build the dust cover. Swarf cover, oil cover, damage from above cover. I think we should build that out of solid titanium. All right, guys. See, there's my hard stop. I just hit my hard stop here, and you can probably see right there my wiper is, oh, I don't know, 1/16 of an inch away. But you know what? You don't get half pregnant. It either hits or it doesn't. All right, we're good. Okay, well, that's it for the X-axis. And, you know, if people are going to ask, I'm going to tell you what that shim stock is. But their feeler gauge that they supply is about 19.5 thou. So it's that's what you use to fish around in there and feel both sides. You know, we worked one bolt until we got a good feel back in this corner. Then we pulled back and worked this one, and then we kind of slipped it through the whole thing. We've trammed it in. We've got our correct spacing. We're very secure. But that's how you mount to a very uneven cast surface. That surface down at the bottom had a horrible draft. You could probably see it right there. I mean, I'm just dropping my screwdriver in there. It's got a big old gap in there. And that jacking bolt, you know, it comes to the rescue. It just comes in, jacks in there, and gives you a place to tighten the main bolt up. So this is done. I'm ready to put on a swarf guard. And we can move on to the next axis, but I think that's going to be a video for another day. Okay, well, we got our guard done. Pretty easy to do. I had to leave the back open because I've got a cable running out the back. I had to shear down this front. It was really easy on the stomp shear. Just stick it in the shear and step on it. And then the front, I gave it a wrap to kind of protect that corner a little bit. We drilled 2 holes in the top. And those are going to screw right into the end caps of the magnetic scale. And you can use the screws they provide, but you need to cut them down. And we should be fitting here. And they call these cheesehead screws. They don't really do much for putting a final touch on your job. You know, they'd look much better if they were Allen bolts or something. So maybe that's why they call them cheesehead screws, because it makes the whole thing look cheesy when you're done. So there's one cheesy head. And here comes another cheesy head. Yeah, those would look really cool with a button head Allen or something on there. That's not much of a finale for your nice scale installation there. But it's protected, doesn't rub on anything. It's pretty tight to the carriage here. Time will tell if swarf gets in there and causes an issue. But that's X-axis done. All right, guys, thanks for watching.